Hi, YouTube. Happy Winter Solstice for those who celebrate. Longest night of the year. Um, and so it is said when spirits and the fae and the fairies are closest to this world. Apparently, also a great time for divination and bonfires. Got mine going right here. Um, but we're going to get into this a little bit. I'm probably not going to have a whole lot of visual aids, so stick with me here. Maybe like 4 minutes of your time and potentially hit a like and subscribe. That would be fantastic. And if not, hey, it's your click. You got to do what you got to do. Now, as the title of the video is, it's the Israel problem, or how all the because the Turning Point USA conference this week and through this weekend has just apparently been lit. Shapiro went after everybody. Bannon threatened Shapiro. And apparently today or yesterday, or I don't even know when the clip was, J.D. Vance led a rousing rendition of "Let's put our political opponents in jail." All normal stuff. Very, very normal shit. Yeah, and at this views, whatever. Yeah, and this is what's nuts. So I'm going to get more into a religion video. I am dealing with some stuff in the real world. Best friend is not doing well, and having long conversations about life, the universe, and everything. It's very Douglas Adams. So this will lead into a longer religion video later on. But right now, we're going to stick with Israel and what has caused this rift fracture in the MAGA influencer podcaster sphere, if you will. So Israel, let's get one thing straight. There is a vested interest in this country to equating criticism of Israel with anti-Semitism. That is not the case. Okay, just flat out, that is not the case. And anyone, I get that it can be politically expedient for both Democrats and Republicans to do this, but it is not. Israel is a country. Countries have governments. Governments do things that are in the best interest of their country. Being against a country and what a country does not mean that it simply does not mean that you're against an entire religion. Right? That is at the forefront of what is going on with MAGA. The start of this really became as Tucker Carlson and a few others started hardening their views on the U.S. support of Israel. And I get it. Hindsight is 2020. As a staunch Republican for most of my life, Israel was, our sole ally in the Middle East. We've got to support Israel. If Israel needs something, we got to do it. They're our only ally in the region, and by God, we've got to take care of them. But reality seems to be a bit different, right? First of all, the Israeli government has always been heavily aligned with Russia and Russian causes. Russia is patently a geopolitical enemy of the United States. Always has been. Soviet Union, Russia. They don't like us. We really shouldn't like them. And Israel kind of plays both a little bit of a game. And Netanyahu, for sure, is a friend of Putin. He is. So going along with that, it's pretty clear potentially Epstein was involved with the Mossad. He spent a lot of time with Ehud Barak. He spent a lot of time in Israel. With the files being released, it's also fairly clear that there's a substantial amount of blackmail material on prominent politicians, business leaders, and wealthy people and the top end of society. So connecting dots, it goes from Epstein, blackmail material, global sex trafficking, to the Mossad, to Russia, to the US. All these things are not really good at all. In fact, they're horrific. It is very taxing to go through the Epstein files and documents and pictures and everything else. It is mentally horrific. And frankly, just a little bit concerning that very wealthy people, very prominent people, pillars of the community, are that patently fucking stupid and gross and evil. But again, if you're, unless your wealth is inherited, to get wealth, you kind of have to be an awful piece of shit human being. It's just usually the way it goes. So, getting back to the point, that's the little brief on Israel. Israel's not necessarily a friend of the U.S. They've gotten us in several wars. They're the reason that we are reviled in the Middle East. Our support of Israel is one of the primary drivers of terror factions and terror groups targeting the United States. If we didn't support Israel and we just kind of kept our hands off, bought Saudi oil, and called it a day, most of the problems that the U.S. has in the Middle East and that region would disappear. That's just a fact. So Tucker Carlson platformed Nick Fuentes. Now, for all his other sins and faulty beliefs, Nick Fuentes is a white supremacist. He's a misogynist. And when I say misogynist, I mean not like, ooh, girls have cooties. I mean like women should not have bank accounts, credit cards, jobs, and should just stay home. They shouldn't be able to own property. That is a belief of Nick Fuentes. The white nationalist part is a given. Other races and people with more melanin than myself don't really, again, shouldn't own property, should not have bank accounts, should not really have jobs. These are all things Nick Fuentes believes. Tucker Carlson platformed Nick Fuentes, specifically regarding Fuentes's anti-Israel, or his belief that Israel, again, is not really a friend of the United States and really shouldn't be supported by us. Again, broken clock, correct a couple times a day. Then, of course, we have what happened, the abhorrent, awful political assassination of Charlie Kirk, which set off a succession war for Turning Point USA, which is the most prominent platform for conservative Gen Zers, early millennials, or late millennials, however you want to term that, and is a significant driver in the MAGA conservative youth movement. That has caused many old Turning Point people who have moved on to bigger and better things, to strike for the crown. Candace Owens is one. There have been several. I don't think Beanie Boy, I don't even remember his name, Beanie Boy, Tim Pool. I don't think he waded into the fight, but he has filtered in here and there. Bannon has weighed in. All your little luminaries. All your little luminaries have weighed in. And it has gotten nasty. And it is going to get worse. As Candace Owens drops dime, she is part of the kind of more negative against Israel faction, plus other things, plus the conspiracy theories about the assassination of Charlie Kirk. There is a story now for both sides. I think one thing to take away from this is not really that this is a good thing. This is all about one specific issue that is dividing them up. The ultimate winner on this is not necessarily, it's not the enemy of my enemy is my friend. It's more the enemy of my enemy is not necessarily my friend. It might not be anything. So these current awakenings of a Marjorie Taylor Greene or Thomas Massey or, you know, Candace Owens and everything else fighting other uh, MAGA podcasters. It reminds me of a novel or a short story. One of my brilliant teachers in high school had specifically had me read. And it's called The Lady and the Tiger, and it's a fairly involved story of a prince and his best friend, lifelong friendship. They got into an argument over what else, a lady, and the prince was betrothed to this lady, but the lady didn't love the prince. The prince loved his friend, and the prince had his friend arrested and brought to a room, and there were two doors in the room. And the prince decided which door was which. And behind one door was the lady in question. Behind the other door is a tiger that would, maul or kill whoever opened the door. And the end of the story is the prince making a decision on which door his friend should open. I'm paraphrasing. I might be a little off on the story a bit. It's literally probably been 30 years, maybe 35 since I read it. But that's where the story ends. And so all the backstory, the entire short story, all the issues and everything that you read, at the end of it, you, the reader, need to decide what the ending of the story is. Did the prince tell him to open the door with the lady? Did the prince tell him to open the door with the tiger? And I think this is sort of all this going on right now with Epstein and Marjorie Taylor Greene, Massey, what's going on with Turning Point USA, Candace Owens, Nick Fuentes. It all very much reminds me of that, because we don't know the ending to this story, and we don't know if it's going to have a happy ending. We don't know if it's going to be the tiger. And it's up to us to kind of decide and what's going to happen with that. And I do find it interesting that realistically on this, I think the lady portion of this whole story and the ending is that those on more of the left of center side that are skeptical of Israel's actions and why are we supporting them and whatnot are ideologically aligned on this issue with a Candace Owens and a Marjorie Taylor Greene and against a Ben Shapiro. Because that's why Ben Shapiro went out. Ben Shapiro is a Zionist. He is a full-throated support of Israel. He has deplatformed and gone after people who say negative things about Israel. That is why all this split is happening. And it's interesting. So, like I said, it's interesting to me how this is kind of, at least on this issue, we can all be aligned. On the Epstein issue, we can all be aligned. That which holds us together is far more than what drives us apart, except for people like Nick Fuentes. Fuck that guy, honestly. I mean, my mom worked. My mom was an administrator. My mom taught gifted and talented and underprivileged children. She worked. There's value in labor. There's value in work. To say that women should not and should never leave the house and shouldn't own property and everything else is just flat out ridiculous. I mean, beyond the economic implications of if that actually occurred, Nick Fuentes is a piece of shit for that. He's an absolute moldering piece of shit. Candace Owens, I, to be perfectly frank, when I was on Twitter, she blocked me, but I, Candace Owens is just a strange duck to me. She says the weirdest, craziest things, and I don't know if she's very harmful in that. Anyway, it is the winter solstice. Have a good evening, everyone. Um, Celebrate how you wish. Commune with the spirits. Light a bonfire. Dance in a circle. Do whatever you need to do for this longest night of the year. Bye, YouTube.